Building rumbles. Mr. Raskin, seek recognition, or?
I seek recognition, and I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report. Point of order reserved by the gentleman from California.
Amendment to the amendment in the nature
Without objection, the amendment be considered as read. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized to explain the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. I've got a very compelling and very germane amendment. It's one sentence. It says, this section shall not take effect until the date on which Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem testifies before the Committee on the Judiciary of the U.S. House of Representatives. We know it is germane because the bill itself has a provision saying that the director of USCIS must provide an in-person briefing to the Judiciary Committee of the House and of the Senate. And so this could not be more closely paired with that. If the USCIS director's got to come in to testify, also his boss should have to come in and testify as well, Secretary Noem. And we need this to happen, Mr. Chairman. I don't need to detain people for that long to prove that Secretary Noem has shown complete disregard for congressional oversight over the last year. She has yet to come before this committee. She left a Homeland Oversight House hearing after 2 hours because she claimed she needed to go to a FEMA Review Council meeting, which had been canceled and still hasn't been rescheduled. The responsiveness of DHS to our oversight requests has been abysmal. When we do get responses, which is rare, they are full of lies and half-truths. Just one example, I've sent her multiple letters with Ranking Member Jayapal inquiring about the number of U.S. citizens that ICE has detained across the country. And I got interested in this because one of my constituents was detained for 5 days by ICE. We didn't get her released until Christmas Day. A U.S. citizen was detained. That's what woke me up to this issue. It turned out Ms. Jayapal has been on this for a while, so we wrote a letter inquiring how many U.S. citizens are being detained by ICE. There's a now rogue police agency which is going after U.S. citizens as well as legal residents and undocumented people. Well, we get an answer which says simply, we do not detain U.S. citizens, which we know is false. I can tell you from my own district, that's false. I have constituents who are U.S. citizens who've been held by ICE. We need Secretary Noem to come in to testify before the United States House of Representatives Judiciary Committee. She needs to be held accountable. Remember, Article 1 branch, Congress, we are the law-making branch of government. We've got the power over naturalization and immigration. That's us. The role of the president is simply to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. They execute the laws which we pass. The oversight function is integral to our ability to pass the laws that the American people need, and then to continually review and update those laws to make sure that we are paying proper attention to changes in circumstances. So, it should be noted, my staff gave me an article demonstrating that Secretary Noem's disdain for congressional oversight is not limited to our side of the aisle alone. There's an article in Notice which said that Republican staff and members are complaining that to get Secretary Noem or her staff on the phone is impossible. The article noted that GOP lawmakers are frustrated with Noem's consistent lack of communication and new rules that are delaying critical FEMA funds. One Republican member who went on record but wished to remain anonymous stated, "You would think a former member of Congress would have more effing respect for the institution she used to serve in." So I hope this is something we can do on a bipartisan basis today. There are a number of things I'm hoping we can do on a bipartisan basis. We need the Secretary of Homeland Security to come in and testify. This is perfectly relevant and germane because we're asking the USCIS director to come in and testify, and I tender it to your judgment, Mr. Chairman. I hope you can support me on that. Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Just for the committee, we are working to get Ms. Secretary Noem in front of the committee. I think we announced last hearing that we have the Attorney General coming on February 11th, and we are working to get Secretary Noem in front of the committee as soon as possible as well. So we will work on that. The gentleman withdraws his point of order against the amendment. The question occurs on the. Someone want to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Vermont is recognized.
Move to strike the last word.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I just want to lend my voice to the concerns that the ranking member has. Why is it that ICE is detaining Americans? And we have a number of articles that I introduced into the record last week about this issue. We have journalists who have documented over 170 Americans who have been detained by ICE, and yet we continually are gaslit by this administration, lied to by Secretary Noem, saying to us point blank that Americans have not been detained, when we know that it is patently false, because we have the records, we have the receipts, we have the names. And I want to remind everybody that immigration and customs enforcement is about immigration. They should patently not be arresting and detaining Americans, full stop. And Americans across this country are waking up to the fact that more and more we see rogue movements from ICE agents. I am thinking of a very disturbing incident that happened in the Minneapolis area in the last 48 hours, where a 17-year-old American citizen was snatched up while he was at a Target, working at a Target, 17-year-old American citizen, hauled off. He's crying. He's saying to the officers, "I'm an American citizen. I can prove it." They haul him off. And then, perhaps at some point, they realize that they've made a mistake. They literally dump him on the ground. Not where he was working, but down the road in front of a Walmart. And you can all look at this. It's all over the internet. And they literally slam him to the ground in front of a Walmart, not even where he was taken up, and they drive away. A 17-year-old American citizen. And I was just talking to my colleague, Ms. Ross. She said they had a similar incident in her home county. ICE is arresting and detaining Americans, and our government is lying about it. And we have the responsibility as members of this committee to demand answers from our government. It is our right and our duty to stand up for our constituents. And it is deeply disturbing to me that we have now incidents of Americans' doors being ramrodded without any warrant. This should terrify all of us. This is chilling. I don't care where you are on the political spectrum. And in fact, Americans, as I said, are waking up, because in that YouGov poll that I just talked about, in terms of how people are feeling about ICE, 14% of Republicans said that they thought that Agent Ross should be arrested. 14% of Republicans. People are waking up to the fact that this ICE, I don't even know what to call them at this point.
Well, Would the gentlelady yield?
I will yield.
You know, somebody else who would be very upset about this situation is Thomas Jefferson. If you read the Declaration of Independence, a lot of the specific items in his Bill of Wrongs against King George
That's right.
sound like they could have been written about this administration and ICE, right? So the king has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people. He's kept amongst us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures, quartered large bodies of armed troops amongst us. He's obstructed the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and so on. I mean, this is extraordinary what's taking place with a rogue agency attacking the rights of U.S. citizens.
That's right. And I would say, again, we need answers, and this committee, regardless of party, should be demanding answers from our government as to why ICE is detaining Americans. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
It's an unfortunate truth that one of the reasons, or a big reason for Americans being accosted, stopped, and jailed by ICE is the fact that they are generally dark-skinned people or people of color. And this legislation, by the way, sets up or continues what the Supreme Court has put into place, a second-class citizenship tier, a caste system where people who are not from European nations are not affected by this act, but people from non-European nations are affected by this legislation. People who are Caucasian are not affected. Caucasian immigrants are not affected by this legislation, but non-Caucasian immigrants are. It's a second-class system that's being set up, but the Supreme Court has given license to it in its decision, which allows for ICE to stop Hispanic-looking people and other people who look like immigrants. You can stop them just because of how you think they look. And it's called a Kavanaugh stop. Because Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote the decision. So we have people across the nation being stopped in accordance with Kavanaugh stops, and it's all legal. And so you've got non-white looking Americans who are subject to having no Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure. And you have Caucasian citizens not affected by that adverse ruling. And so we're setting up a second-class system here in this country. This second-class system has always been there. It's just being reinforced with the advent of the Trump administration and people like Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon calling the shots. And Elon Musk also. Let's not forget about the Heil Hitler saluting Doge guy who cut jobs mostly affecting black women in this country, or disproportionately impacting black women in this country. But this is a racial profiling bill that I oppose. I support the amendment, ironically. And with that, I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized.
I just want to describe some of the people that they're referring to as being so-called targeted by ICE. During Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota, ICE has arrested more than 400 illegal aliens, including pedophiles, rapists, and violent thugs. These vicious criminal illegal aliens were allowed to roam Minnesota streets thanks to its sanctuary policies. Here, a 47-year-old criminal illegal alien from Burma who has been convicted of third-degree criminal sexual conduct using force or coercion has had a final order of removal since February 27, 2014. A 59-year-old criminal illegal alien from Laos who was convicted of 2 counts of rape in Ohio. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison. He has had a final order of removal since December 17, 2009. A 52-year-old criminal illegal alien from Laos who has been convicted of 4th-degree criminal sexual conduct using force or coercion. He was sentenced to 18 months in prison, and he has had a final order of removal since March 2004. What I refer to when I say a final order of removal, it means all of them have already had the due process that they're entitled to be removed from our country. These are all illegal aliens who were in Minnesota committing these crimes. I'm shocked that my colleagues on the other side don't care about that. A 43-year-old criminal illegal alien from Somalia convicted of robbery, a final order of removal since May 17, 2011. A 42-year-old criminal illegal alien from Laos who was convicted of 1st-degree criminal sexual conduct with a child under 13 years old. He has had a final order of removal since October 31st, 2006. Again, all of these folks have had all of the due process that they are entitled to be moved out of our country. A 50-year-old criminal illegal alien from Laos who was convicted of 1st-degree great bodily harm and sentenced to 14 years and 7 months, 3rd-degree sexual conduct, sexual intercourse with a child, and sentenced to 210 days in California. What does that say for California? And has had a final order of removal since October 31, 2000. 49-year-old criminal alien from Mexico who has been arrested for soliciting children through electronic communication to engage in sexual conduct and convicted of hiring or agreeing to hire a child under 16 for prostitution. A 63-year-old criminal illegal alien from Laos who was convicted of 3rd-degree criminal sexual conduct and 2nd-degree assault with a dangerous weapon has had a final order of removal since May 23, 2001. A 26-year-old criminal illegal alien from Ecuador who was convicted of robbery in Ohio, driving while intoxicated, assaulting a police officer, obstructing the legal process, and disarming a police officer. A 51-year-old criminal alien from Mexico who was convicted of 3rd-degree assault with intent to cause physical injury. He has had a final order of removal since February 3rd, 2010. These are not people that I want to defend. These are people that we need to have out of our country. They do not belong. They do not belong here, and it is necessary for them to be removed. These are just some of the folks that have been arrested in this operation in Minnesota because the Democrats, the governor, and the mayor of Minneapolis have refused to protect the citizens of Minnesota against these kinds of people. These truly are the worst of the worst of the worst of the worst. And if the leadership in Minnesota and these other sanctuary states actually cooperated with the Trump administration, you would not see the kinds of activities that they have been having to undertake in order to protect the citizens of the United States of America. I again cannot believe that we are debating whether these people should be removed from our country. This is not a race issue. It is not a racial issue. I don't care what color you are. If you are committing rape on a child, you should be removed, whether you are from Norway or Germany or Mexico or Honduras. It doesn't matter to me what you look like. What matters to me is your conduct. And if you are going to engage in illegal conduct in the United States of America as an illegal alien, we are going to find you. This administration is going to find you, and we are going to remove you. We are no longer going to allow our citizens to be placed at risk because there are communities like you see in Minnesota and Colorado and other sanctuary states that allow this kind of mayhem to happen. With that, I yield back.
Generally yields back. The chair now recognizes I think, has the gentlelady spoken on this one? Or?
No.
Then you're recognized.
I know, I've spoken on a number of these, but I have not spoken on this one yet. So I rise in support of the ranking member's amendment to have Kristi Noem here before us. And it seems pretty simple to me. I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask her. By the way, Kristi Noem said something the other day that I agree with. She was on CNN.
Oh, yeah.
And she said, we can't trust our government anymore. And the CNN interviewer Dana Bash, said to her, "You are the government." And Kristi Noem said, "Yes, that's what I'm saying." On this particular point, I agree with her, because they are telling lies to us every single day. And we can't trust the government when it's represented by people like Kristi Noem. So we should have her come. She hasn't responded to any of the letters that we've sent. That's not a surprise. But I think it is important that she come and testify before us. I also wanted to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record an article that literally just came out in the New York Times. It's called "3 Prosecutors Quit After Push to Investigate ICE Shooting Victim's Widow."
Without objection.
And I'm going to read from this article because I think this is very important. Remember, the leading federal prosecutor on the fraud case in Minnesota was appointed by Donald Trump. He is a career prosecutor, and he was appointed acting U.S. attorney by Trump in May of 2024. And he has now resigned. 3 Minnesota federal, I'm reading from the article, 3 Minnesota federal prosecutors resigned over the Justice Department's push to investigate the widow of a woman killed by an ICE agent and its reluctance to investigate the shooter, according to people with knowledge of the decision. And the article goes on to say Mr. Thompson's resignation came after senior Justice Department officials pressed for a criminal investigation into the actions of the widow of Renee Nicole Good, the Minneapolis woman killed by an ICE agent last Wednesday. Mr. Thompson, 47, a career prosecutor, objected to that approach, as well as to the Justice Department's refusal to include state officials in investigating whether the shooting itself was lawful. 2 other senior career prosecutors, Harry Jacobs and Melinda Williams, also resigned on Tuesday. Mr. Jacobs had been Mr. Thompson's deputy overseeing the fraud investigation, which began in 2022. And then it goes on to say that these fraud cases, I'll read exactly what the article says, the fraud cases were the chief reason the Trump administration launched an immigration crackdown in the state. This goes back to the amendment that was ruled out of order in the last bill, which really, I think, should have been ruled in order. It went straight to the question of this so-called fraud investigation and how it's being linked to the surge in immigration enforcement by ICE and Border Patrol. And I think it is very important for us to recognize that what is happening with the Department of Justice and with the Department of Homeland Security is even pushing out senior prosecutors. I mean, this federal prosecutor, Mr. Thompson, was the one who was overseeing this sprawling fraud investigation. And he cannot abide by how the so-called fraud investigation is being used to justify things that he cannot justify as a federal prosecutor appointed by Donald Trump to that position. And so I know we have very capable prosecutors, and including Mr. Knott on the other side, former prosecutors. And I would just say, please look at what is happening. Because when you not only have an ICE agent who shoots a woman 3 times, we all have video that's very, very clear, but let's say, let's stipulate to the fact that we all believe there should be an independent investigation of what happened. And you have the Justice Department not only saying they're not going to prosecute that ICE official, they're not going to conduct an investigation, they're not going to share the results of whatever they're doing with the state law enforcement investigations, but then you also have them trying to essentially criminalize and assassinate the widow of the woman who was shot. And you have these senior prosecutors on the Republican side resigning because of that conduct. I hope that people who have been prosecutors on the other side will look at this and start to speak out. It's extremely dangerous. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized, Mr. Van Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wanted to say that I actually agree with one thing on the other side, and I think it's going to happen. Kristi Noem should come and we should hear from her, and I believe that she will. There's nothing to indicate that she won't. You know, I've sat here for years now, as I guess a good number of us have, and I am always perplexed, honestly, by the other side. Always concerned with the criminal, never the victim. Always concerned with the individuals who have been convicted or indicted in another country or in this country, but never the people who've been the recipients of the pain. Always concerned with the perpetrator of criminal activity on the other side, but not the unfortunate recipient of the activity. Always concerned with the drug dealer and not the family whose family has been affected so much when somebody is addicted and poisoned and their life is ruined. Concerned with the murderer, but not the loss of life. Concerned with the rapist, they are, but not the child or the woman who has been defiled. I would even get it if you repeatedly brought up both the one side of this, all the horrible, god-awful things that have been done, and I wish to associate myself with the remarks that Ms. Hageman made, but they don't talk about even the other side at all. They don't matter. They don't care. All the horrible things that happened, they just don't say a word. The silence is deafening when it comes to that.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Gentlelady can state a point of order.
Do we not have a rule here in the Judiciary Committee about, impugning members of this committee, using words like never and always?
I've never.
You just said that we always stand up for the rapist.
The gentlelady has not stated a point of order. The gentleman, the time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. The gentleman is recognized.
So we're back to what I said. If you were concerned with both even and said, well, we have to make sure that we have the rule of law and that those who've committed crimes are treated fairly, I'm open to that. I understand that. I'll listen to that. But I just don't hear the other point. And if we want to listen to the tapes and look at the videos, it's all the one. I don't get it. We don't talk about those who were hurt and their lives destroyed. So I would say that if we want to have this conversation, I sincerely would recommend that maybe we think about those folks a little bit. We've had them here. We've listened to them here. They've testified here. People who've lost their husbands, their wives, their daughters, their sons, people who've been raped, who've been beaten, children. We didn't have them testify. We just heard stories about them. For God's sake, there's a reasoning this is all happening. There's a reason that the changes have occurred, because people don't want this happening to them. They have a right as Americans not to fear this. So, of course, we're going to do something about it. And in the process, if something happened that the other side feels was inappropriate or illegal, yeah, we can discuss that. But for God's sake, to hear only the one point of view, to me, and I really mean this, Mr. Chairman, I don't understand it. It is weird and perverse and bizarre. I don't get it. Because there's millions of Americans. Yes, you may point out there's some Americans that were going too far. Okay, I'll listen to that. I'll digest that. But man, there's a lot of Americans that were really scared, really worried, really upset, and feared for their families at so many levels. It's hard to live life today with all the challenges there are out there, especially for young people and the defenseless, and the silence is deafening. So I just wanted to leave that thought here. Maybe we think about the people who've been so badly hurt by some of the awful, horrible, and if you want the lists of people who have been deported or have been imprisoned and what they did and who they hurt and how many lives they destroyed, that's certainly producible.
Will the gentleman yield?
We can get you that.
Yield?
I will yield for the 48 seconds I have.
Thank you. When will the gentleman support putting up the plaque in commemoration of the sacrifice of the Capitol Hill police officers who defended us on January 6th? When will the gentleman support bringing that plaque out?
Reclaim my time. First of all, I don't know that that's germane to what we're doing today.
Well, it's supporting
but
the police.
I will answer it anyhow. Guess what? I do support it. I wouldn't have a problem with the plaque going up. It is a decision by the Speaker, and this is what he's decided, and I support the Speaker, but I don't have a problem with putting the plaque up. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to speak just a little bit, and then I'm going to yield to my ranking member. But when my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were talking about all the pedophiles and the violent thugs and the rapists, it does sound exactly like some of the January 6ers who were pardoned by this president. Because, in fact, some of those very exact folks went out and committed these additional crimes after they were pardoned. Soliciting from minors, abusing little children, raping women, assaulting officers, in fact, even after they were pardoned. I don't think anyone on my side of the aisle wants to get into a debate about the rule of law. We all believe in upholding the rule of law. And I have to tell you, people of all ages, of all ethnic descriptions, of all status, commit crimes every day. And the Cato Institute actually has a report that talks about the tens of thousands of folks who are here illegally who are committing crimes and are incarcerated versus the tens of millions of U.S. citizens, native-born Americans, who are committing crimes and are incarcerated. So it's not the undocumented folks who are taking up all the space in the prisons, it's U.S. citizens. But I support this amendment because Kristi Noem should show up. She should show up with all of her receipts. Because if she's unafraid of showing up, she should have all of her receipts. Because we have questions. You should have questions. Why are ICE agents busting down doors without proper warrants, without probable cause? Why are they rolling up on schools with like little kids, okay, during lunchtime, rolling up into hospitals, into social service centers, and into child care centers, looking for whom? And who are they? Why are they still masked? No other law enforcement agency has masked individuals working for them. Why do they need $500 extra billion? Like, what else are they going to do with this money? That's why we have questions, because when they're rolling up into your city, they are also impacting local law enforcement. Their violent tactics are impacting local law enforcement on top of injuring citizens and locals with tear gas and weapons. And these folks are infringing upon your Fourth Amendment rights, your Fifth Amendment rights, the 10th Amendment rights. They have thrown the Constitution into the fireplace. And this is the exact committee where we should be asking her these questions. And if she thinks it's okay to do it, she can come with her receipts. So I would like to yield the rest of my time to the ranking member if he would like it.
I thank the gentlelady very much. I was truly astonished by the remarks of the gentleman from New Jersey who said that he is always shocked that the Democrats stand up for criminals, for the convicts, for the drug dealers, for the rapists, and not for the victims. He finds it weird, he finds it perverse, he finds it bizarre, which strikes me as a case of nothing less than moral dyslexia. And I would charge him with exactly what he's charging us with. Let's begin with January 6th. I know the gentleman doesn't like to talk about January 6th, but charity and compassion for victims starts at home, Mr. Van Drew. Just like the defense of the rule of law starts at home, right here. So we had thousands of crimes committed against our police officers. Donald Trump pardoned 1,600 of them, people who smashed police officers in the face with baseball bats, with hockey sticks, with Confederate battle flags, with Donald Trump flags, Confederate battle flags. The gentleman doesn't utter a word about that. He's content to have them give $5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt, even though 2 different government investigations said the police had acted responsibly and reasonably under the circumstances, but he's got no problem with giving $5 million to them. Has he proposed a penny for the families of the officers, including the ones who've been driven out of police work because they're permanently disabled and disfigured by what that riotous mob did. This goes way beyond January 6th. I'm going to submit for the record a list of all the clemency grants by President Donald Trump. Here are the drug dealers you're looking for. Here are the murderers you're looking for. Here are the rapists you're looking for. Look at the people who got pardoned. I'm going to submit our report 1 year later assessing the public safety implications of President Trump's mass pardon of 1,600 rioters. It's not just the people who committed violence on that day.
Without objection.
33 pardoned insurrectionists have since been charged with, convicted of, or arrested for these offenses. I'll leave you with this thought, Mr. Van Drew, so you can take this back and consider your double standards.
Gentleman's time
Rape,
has expired.
child sexual
Gentleman's
assault.
time has expired.
Okay, well, maybe somebody else will give me the chance to complete it.
Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr.
No,
Chairman.
excuse me. Gentleman from Texas, then I'll come to the gentleman from Arizona. I apologize. Gentleman from Texas is in line.
Well, my apologies to the gentleman from Arizona. What we're talking about here is an amendment to a bill, the purpose of which is to preserve the Integrity and Immigration Benefits Act.
Yep.
The bill is to require USCIS to review all approved immigration benefit requests that were approved from January 20th, 21 to present, to make sure that foreign individuals who enter the United States from terror-prone or high-risk countries, make sure our national security is being protected is a top priority. We can debate the policies of how we handle American citizens and how long they should be in jail and what they should be in jail for. I'm for that. I'm for prosecuting bad guys. I'm for putting them in jail. And I've had debates here about policies taken here on both sides of the aisle under the second chance, first step, all these things. I am decidedly for making sure that bad guys who are carrying out particularly violent crimes, but crimes in general, are put behind bars and are not released prematurely so that they engage in additional criminal behavior and recidivism. The point here is that the individuals we're talking about that ICE is removing from the United States are individuals who are here in the United States because somebody decided they should be here. And these are people who are illegally present or present by virtue of what I believe was an abuse of the law under asylum and parole under the previous administration to put individuals into our country that needn't be here. That's the point. So when we're talking about going down the list of people that ICE have arrested, the gentlelady from Wyoming has done it. Other members has done it. I could go through the list I've got right in front of me. Austin, Texas, kidnapping and rape, an individual from Afghanistan. Somebody from Mexico, aggravated assault on a family house member, impeding breath and circulation. An individual from Honduras, aggravated assault causing significant bodily injury. These are all in Texas, right around where I live. Indecent assault, guy from Mexico in Harris County in Houston. Sexual assault of a child, a guy in Harris County, which is Houston. Abandoning or endangering a child, Burnett, Texas, right up the road from where I live. Indecency with a child by exposure, Fort Bend County, Texas, near Houston. Aggravated assault, assault and drug possession. To the extent we care about race, which I do not, I just searched the database for people from Ukraine, making maybe a wild assumption some of them might be just some white dudes. Sure enough, I got a whole page of incredibly bad crimes here in terms of child abuse, burglary, drugs, assault, sexual exploitation of a minor. These are very bad people who are walking among us in the streets of the United States. And the question is why? President Trump didn't release these people into the streets of America. I didn't vote to release these people onto the streets of America. It wasn't the people that are running this administration that have released these people onto the streets of America. It was very decidedly the Biden administration, Mayorkas, and others that released the people into the streets of America and or have supported policies that have allowed these dangerous individuals to exploit our immigration laws to be on the streets of the United States. And ICE is engaging in their job to remove them. In what universe do we not say we fully support ICE removing them? Have hearings about conduct, review conduct, as we should in oversight. But the idea that we're talking about 33 individuals, as the ranking member raised, about those individuals, all but 4 of them were for events that occurred prior to January 6th. So only 4 were things that have occurred since. Now, do I support ensuring that if they're violating the law for whatever charges the gentleman read off, due process, et cetera? Yes, charge them with crimes, put them in jail. The point here is we have thousands, tens of thousands of people from around the world who are either illegally present or are only present by virtue of the abuse of our immigration laws, very specifically by the previous administration, that are on our streets endangering Americans, and Americans have died as a result, been raped as a result, and harmed as a result, and ICE should remove them. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. It's the gentlelady from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we can all stipulate that all of us are opposed to crime and to victimizing innocent people. But I do think it's ironic that the President of the United States has pardoned people who have been involved in those same things. And I think the gentlelady from California had a quick question she wanted to pose. I yield to her for that question.
Yes, thank you. Listening to my colleagues talk about Americans who were victimized, it made me think about the family of Officer Sitnick, who was here for January 6th. And I just was wondering, because I know the ranking member was talking about this list of folks that were pardoned, these January 6ers. And I wanted to know if Republicans had met with the family of the slain officer, if Republicans had listened, had consoled, all of the things that you're being accused of not doing. That was my question.
Yeah, reclaiming my time, I would like to yield to the ranking member, because I think he had a few other points he wanted to make.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Ms. Lofgren. First of all, let me address the point made by the gentleman from Texas. Please don't misunderstand my point. I thought it was outrageous that President Trump pardoned the 1,600 insurrectionists and rioters in the first place. I don't think they should be pardoned after having violently assaulted our police officers. The indicia for a pardon are contrition, remorse, reform, rehabilitation, ready to be reassimilated to society. Most of these people are completely uncontrite and unremorseful. The one remorseful insurrectionist I saw was Pamela Hemphill, who rejected Donald Trump's pardon. And she's a grandma in her 70s who came here and said, I reject your filthy pardon because I did this, because I listened to you. I listened to your lies, your big lie. I went into the Capitol and I violated the law, and I should be punished for that. She's the one person who really deserves a pardon because she thought about what she had done, but it's the others who are celebrating their pardons, and they want money too. The Proud Boys are asking for what, $150 million from the government. They've filed a little administrative reparations claim so they can have a sweetheart deal like Donald Trump himself wants. Now, come on. Let's get real about this situation. I'm not just talking about what happened on that day. Yes, there are dozens of crimes that have been committed since January 6th, as the gentleman says. And if we had some of the political operatives on our side, that you'd be seeing a Willie Horton ad every single night about those people out there who Donald Trump pardoned, who were involved in child sex abuse materials and sexual assault and home invasions and terrorizing FBI agents. Is there anybody willing to speak up for those pardons of those people who are already back at it again? I hope not. And this former Democrat Republican from New Jersey wants to lecture us about how we don't care about the victims. And we were with the police officers on January 6th and with their families. We don't pretend they don't exist. We don't pretend that their lives haven't been fundamentally altered and renegotiated and changed by what happened because it's politically inconvenient for us. We got to get over this idea that there are somehow politically worthy victims and politically unworthy victims, either of general crimes or crimes by the state, by the police. And there's some people who, they don't look at what the criminal event was, they look at who the victim is or who the perpetrator was. And that's wrong. We got to be standing up for people across the board against crime in America and against crime by government officers, including ICE agents. The gentlelady read a list of bad actors in Minnesota who, if they are undocumented, should be out of the country. Everybody agrees to that. That doesn't mean that we have to remain silent when an ICE agent shoots a 37-year-old mother, U.S. citizen, in the face 3 times when she provided no threat to him. And I would hope that my colleagues who can stand up for a rioter, an insurrectionist, who charges into the Capitol and charges into the House of Representatives against a police officer, even though 2 investigations completely exonerated him, would at least be able to understand why America is so upset about the killing of Ms. Good in Minneapolis.
I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back.
Strike the last word.
Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo my colleagues' comments about January 6th and, of course, the absurd hypocrisy from my Republican colleagues. But I want to address some of the arguments that my friend from Texas made and that we hear so often from our colleagues on the other side. This notion that what this administration's immigration dragnet is, focuses on, quote unquote, the worst of the worst. The rapists, the murderers, the sex abusers, the most awful of crimes among the ones that are charged here. The problem is that based on this administration's own data, 5% of immigrants who are detained have criminal histories with serious felonies. 5%. 70% have no criminal history whatsoever. So if you were to tell us that the President of the United States is following through on his promise to target the worst of the worst, to the convicted felons, and to deport them, you will have no objection from this side. We would be out there supporting this administration right alongside with you. But that is not what is happening. And that's why so many Americans are angry. That is why, for the first time ever, polling shows that the majority of Americans want to abolish ICE. What we are seeing around this country is not targeting the worst of the worst. It's not deporting the worst of the worst. It is going after people, many of whom are lawfully here. You may not like the asylum process. I get it. I don't like it either. It takes way too long. It needs to be reformed. But you and the administration does not just get to decide that the asylum process doesn't need to be followed. And perhaps the reason why this amendment is so important is because when the Secretary of Homeland Security came before the Homeland Security Committee, she admitted that it is illegal to deport someone with an ongoing asylum case, which is happening all over this country. I don't hear any of you standing up for the rule of law and saying, you know what, hold on, our asylum process is broken. We should reform it. We should legislate. We should actually address the fact that asylum takes 7 years to get through. I agree with you. It was your dear president who submarined a bipartisan bill in the Senate that would have done that, but we'll move on. You can't just say, I don't like it. I don't like the law. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And in the process of doing whatever I want, I am going to use excessive violence, the kind of violence we don't see from any criminal law enforcement agencies around this country. Nothing like it. Nothing like it. Because it is excessive force. And I don't understand why it is so difficult for my Republican colleagues to stand up for the humanity of any person who is a citizen or not. But since you only care about citizens, let's focus on the citizens. So people who are being beaten on the streets by untrained officers, given $50,000 bonuses to go work for ICE, who don't know proper protocol and are killing people in our streets. That's not American. I don't care what the law is, that's not American. And you can stand up to this administration just like we can. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Question is on the gentleman from California is recognized to speak on the amendment.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with the ranking member that said earlier that the president's responsibility is to faithfully execute the laws that Congress has passed. Absolutely right. But the Democrats are doing everything they can to obstruct the president from enforcing the Immigration and Nationality Act, which specifically requires any person who illegally enters our country shall be detained. That's the exact wording of the law, shall be detained. This is a clear provision of law that Biden simply refused to faithfully execute or even to casually observe as the Democrats here cheered him on. Again, I remind them if they don't like the law, they should make their case to change the law. Just level with the people. Just admit you don't care who's admitted into our country or what it costs people's families or affects their safety. We are seeing a fairly dramatic reduction in crime in those jurisdictions where ICE enforcement is being surged, precisely because ICE is targeting people who either have criminal convictions, criminal charges, or final removal orders issued by a court that they're simply ignoring. The gentleman from New York tells us only 30% of those targeted by ICE have criminal convictions. What he left out is another 40% of criminal charges pending against them, and almost all of the rest have final orders of deportation issued by a judge that they're simply ignoring. And with regard to pending asylum claims, the law, again, is very clear. Someone who has illegally entered our country who makes an asylum claim shall be detained until their case is decided. Now, they can leave that detention at any time for any country that will accept them. But an asylum claim does not give them the right to illegally enter our country and then roam freely while the claim is considered. That has only occurred because the Democrats ignored the law and refused their constitutional responsibility to see that it's faithfully executed. Now, normally ICE would take custody of these criminals as they're being held by law enforcement, but sanctuary jurisdictions instead release them back into our community. So then ICE has to come and arrest them. And if there are other illegals in their presence, well, they shall be detained as well, because again, that is precisely what the law requires, shall be detained. Again, if you don't like it, then make the case to change it. I sympathize with any American citizens who are detained until their nationality can be confirmed. I sympathize with any American who is detained by law enforcement while they're under suspicion for any crime. Our system isn't perfect. Sometimes innocent people are placed under suspicion, but the alternative is not to enforce any of our laws, and that seems to be the position of the Democrats with respect to our immigration laws. My colleague from California says, well, we all support the enforcement of the law. Well, prove it. by telling the violent mobs that listen to you not to obstruct the enforcement of our immigration laws, not to harass and assault law enforcement officers, and not to threaten them or their families or interfere with their duty to enforce the law. But this bill involves those admitted to our country as refugees by the Biden administration without thorough vetting, often without any vetting at all. So to my colleague from Georgia, he's precisely wrong. Race has nothing to do with the review. It has everything to do with the fact that there are certain countries that are hostile to ours, that have deeply ingrained cultures of corruption, active terrorist networks, and are entirely unreliable in any information they do provide. These are countries that have demonstrated a high degree of unreliability or inaccessibility of records that make vetting all but impossible. Many, many people were admitted with little or no information on their backgrounds or intentions, coming from countries with active terrorist cells. We had many hearings involving USCIS where we received testimony that the Biden administration ignored vetting requirements in what was described as a get-to-yes policy, when you had hundreds of thousands of poorly vetted or unvetted migrants admitted en masse. It seems only prudent to go back and review their backgrounds because this review was not done when they were originally admitted. This is already being done by the administration because that is their duty, to protect the American people, something the Democrats have consistently seemed uninterested in or even opposed to doing. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Question occurs on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Maryland. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
We have a recorded vote,
There's
please.
a recorded vote being requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Jordan?
No.
Mr. Jordan votes no. Mr. Issa? Mr. Biggs? Mr. McClintock? Mr. McClintock votes no. Mr. Tiffany? Mr. Massey? Mr. Massey votes no. Mr. Roy? Mr. Roy votes no. Mr. Fitzgerald? Mr. Klein? Mr. Klein votes no. Mr. Gooden? Mr. Gooden votes no. Mr. Van Drew? Mr. Van Drew votes no. Mr. Nels? Mr. Moore? Mr. Moore votes no. Mr. Kiley? Mr. Kiley votes no. Ms. Hageman? Ms. Hageman? Ms. Hageman votes no. Ms. Lee? Ms. Lee votes no. Mr. Hunt? Mr. Fry? Mr. Grothman? Mr. Grothman votes no. Mr. Knott? Mr. Knott votes no. Mr. Harris? Mr. Harris votes no. Mr. Onder? Mr. Onder votes no. Mr. Schmidt? Mr. Schmidt votes no. Mr. Gill? Mr. Baumgartner? Mr. Raskin?
Aye.
Mr. Raskin votes aye. Mr. Nadler? Ms. Lofgren? Ms. Lofgren votes aye. Mr. Cohen? Mr. Cohen votes aye. Mr. Johnson? Mr. Johnson votes aye. Mr. Swalwell? Mr. Liu? Ms. Jayapal? Ms. Jayapal votes aye. Mr. Correa? Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon votes aye. Mr. Neguse? Ms. McBath? Ms. Ross? Ms. Ross votes yes. Ms. Ballant? Ms. Ballant votes yes. Mr. Garcia? Mr. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Kamlager-Dove? Ms. Kamlager-Dove votes aye. Mr. Moskowitz? Mr. Goldman? Mr. Goldman votes aye. Ms. Crockett? Mr. Baumgartner? Mr. Baumgartner votes no. Mr. Gill? Mr. Gill votes no.
Clerk will report.
Mr. Chairman, there are 11 ayes and 18 noes.